inspired by a true event. Have you ever witnessed someone suddenly hear a truth that turned their entire life upside down? Sometimes a mother's silence hides more than the loudest screams. A mother's tears sometimes reveal all the pain she has hidden for years. Sometimes wealth is just a big lie. Betrayal hurts more when it comes from the person you trust the most. When my husband got up from the table to go to the bathroom, an elderly woman I didn't recognize leaned over and, with trembling hands, handed me a thick envelope. "Get out of here now, girl," she whispered, her voice filled with fear. "Through the back door. Now." My daughter was smiling just like you. She's not with us anymore. Welcome, everyone. Let me know in the comments where you're watching me from. Don't forget to subscribe and like my story. Enjoy. But before, everything was so perfect. That evening, 29-year-old Natalie for Harper, it was the best night of her life. At least she thought so. She was sitting at the upscale Azure restaurant in the heart of the city, facing her husband Damien. She looked at Cole and was filled with happiness. It had only been 3 weeks since they'd been married. Their first romantic dinner after their honeymoon. It all felt like a dream. Damien was a tall, dark-haired, sharp-jawed man of 34. The blue in his eyes made Natalie's heart race every time he looked at her. He was a successful real estate agent. He had a luxurious car, a stylish home, an engaging conversation. They had met 6 months earlier when he came into the library where Natalie worked and was looking for a local history book. It had been love at first sight. "Natalie, I want to tell you something," Damien said, reaching his hand across the table. His fingers touched hers. It was a warm, reassuring touch. "This marriage means everything to me. You mean everything to me. You know that, right?" Natalie smiled. Her cheeks turned pink. "I feel the same," she said softly. "I feel luckier every day." Damien's smile widened, that deep in his eyes. For just a second, a strange gleam appeared that Natalie didn't notice. A calculation. A trap. Then that warm, loving look returned. The waiter arrived and took their orders. The restaurant was crowded. On a Thursday evening, the city's elite gathered here. Crystal chandeliers, white linens, silverware, refinement in every corner. Being at Azure was a sign of status. Damien had chosen this place. "My princess deserves the best," he had said. Natalie looked around. At the next table, an elderly woman sat alone. She wore a brown dress, her hair grey, and her face deeply lined. She hadn't eaten at all. She just sat there, her hands clasped in her lap, looking at Natalie. Directly at her, without blinking. Natalie looked uncomfortable. She smiled and bowed her head slightly, a gesture of kindness. But the woman didn't smile. She just continued to stare. There was a deep sadness in her eyes. Perhaps something else. Fear? Natalie wasn't sure. "Is something wrong, dear?" Damien asked, noticing Natalie's distraction. Natalie said quickly, her eyes darting to her husband. "It's just, the woman at the next table is a little weird. She keeps looking at me." Damien turned his head and looked. The old woman quickly looked away, focusing on her cup. Damien shrugged. "Maybe she feels like she knows you. Or maybe she's just curious. Don't worry about it." Natalie nodded. He was right. She was worrying unnecessarily. Maybe she was just a loner and liked people watching. It didn't matter. Tonight was important. Damien was important. Their food arrived. Lamb chops, creamy potatoes, fresh vegetables. Everything was perfect. They talked, they laughed, they drank wine. Damien told her he was planning a trip to Paris. "Let's go in a month," he said. "I'll fall in love with you all over again under the Eiffel Tower." Tears filled Natalie's eyes. Tears of joy. "I love you so much," she said. "I love you too," Damien said. But there was that instant change in those eyes again, like the flicker of a fluorescent light. Then normality again. They finished eating. Damien looked at his phone. "Excuse me for a minute, honey," he said. "I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back." He stood up, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the back of the restaurant. Natalie was left alone at the table. She raised her wine glass to her lips and took a small sip. She looked around. Music was playing softly. People were talking, laughing, enjoying life. What a beautiful world this was. How lucky she was. And at that very moment, the old woman at the next table stood up. Natalie froze. The woman was coming directly toward her. Her steps were slow, but determined. A strange expression appeared on her face. Pain. Helplessness. Perhaps regret. The woman came to Natalie's table, leaned over, and whispered in her ear. Her voice was cracked and trembling. "Girl, please listen to me. You don't have much time." Natalie's heart began to race. "But, who are you?" "My name is Margaret Lawson," the woman said quickly. "And you must stay away from your husband. He is a monster. The stories that have been silenced for years had nowhere to hide anymore." Natalie gasped. "What? What are you saying?" "This is ridiculous." "It's not ridiculous," Margaret interrupted. She reached out and clasped Natalie's wrist tightly. Her fingers were cold. "My daughter married him too. Her name was Grace. Grace Lawson. 3 years ago. Damien Cole said the same things to her. He smiled the same smile. He made the same promises." Natalie's head started spinning. No. You're confusing me with the wrong person." Damien is a liar," said Margaret, her eyes filling with tears. "He's only after money. My daughter wasn't rich, but she had a house. A small house she inherited from her mother. Damien married her, put the house in his name, and 6 months later my daughter disappeared." Natalie's heart was pounding against her chest. "Is he lost?" "Yes," Margaret said. The pain in her voice seeped into every word. "The police said it was an accident. She was found in the river. But I know. Damien killed her. He sold the house, took the money, and disappeared. Then he reappeared. With a new identity. A new name. But I recognized him. Those eyes, that face, I could never forget him." Natalie shook her head. "This was impossible. This was crazy. No, you were wrong. Damien isn't like that. He loves me. We're happy." "That's what Grace said," Margaret said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside was money. A lot of money. "Take this. Get out of here now. Through the back door. Now. Don't let him find you. If you stay here, you'll end up like Grace." Natalie looked at the envelope. Her hand was shaking. Should she take it? Should she accept it? Was this woman being crazy? Or was she really telling the truth? But then a sound was heard from the back of the restaurant. Footsteps. Damien was coming back. Margaret pressed the envelope into Natalie's hand. "Please, girl. Trust me. Go now." Then he turned and hurried back to his own table. He sat down, staring into his glass, as if nothing had happened. Damien returned to the table, smiling. "Miss me?" he joked. Natalie forced a smile. She had placed the envelope on her knees under the table, out of sight. Her heart was still beating wildly. "Yes," she said. Her voice was trembling. "Of course." Damien frowned. "Are you okay? You look a little pale." "I'm fine," Natalie said quickly. "Just a little tired, I guess." "Let's leave early then," Damien said. "Let's go home, let you rest." He reached out and took Natalie's hand. That warm, reassuring touch. But it felt different to Natalie. Now, cold, calculating, dangerous, everything started out like an ordinary day. Until it showed its true colors. They paid the bill. They walked out of the restaurant. The night was cold. The wind was blowing. Natalie shivered. Damien took off his jacket and put it around her shoulders. "Here, it suits you," he said. They walked toward the car. Natalie turned, looking out the Azures window. Margaret was still sitting, unmoving. Her face was hard as stone. Her eyes watched Natalie. The message in those eyes was clear. Run. But Natalie didn't run away. She got in the car and sat next to Damien. They drove home. Their apartment was in the city center, in a modern building. Damien invited her in, locked the door and said, "Let me make you something." Natalie went into the living room and sat on the couch. The envelope in her hand was still in her bag. Should she open it? Should she look inside? Was what Margaret had said true? She was confused. She had to look at Damien. She knew him. They had been together for 6 months. They were married. He loved her. Didn't he? But that fear in Margaret's eyes, that pain, it was the look of a mother who had lost her daughter. Damien returned from the kitchen, 2 cups of tea in hand. "Here, this will relax you," he said. Natalie looked into the cup. Steam was rising. The scent was pleasant. But suddenly a strange thought occurred to her. What if there was something in this tea? What if Damien was trying to put her to sleep? No, that was ridiculous. He was her husband. She should have trusted him. He reached for the cup, brought it to his lips, and at that moment his phone rang. No one was aware of what was going to happen that day. Damien started. "Who's calling?" he asked, his voice suddenly harsh. Natalie looked at the phone. She didn't recognize the number. "I don't know," she said. "Don't open it," Damien said quickly. "It's probably spam." But Natalie had already answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice came on the other end of the line. Old, shaky, "Margaret. Natalie, please listen. Tomorrow morning, come to the coffee house across the street from your house. At 10. I'll show you pictures of Grace. I'll tell you everything. But now, tonight, don't drink that tea. Don't. It'll put you to sleep. And when you wake up in the morning, you'll find everything will be gone. Your bank accounts, the deed to your house, everything. Please, trust me. The line is closed." Every step was drawing them deeper into the story. Natalie put her phone down. She looked at Damien. He was looking at her. He was smiling. But that smile now seemed scary to her. "Who was calling?" she asked. "Wrong number," Natalie said, her voice muffled. "Then drink your tea," said Damien. "Don't let it get cold." Natalie looked at the cup, then at Damien, then back at the cup, and he made his decision. The cup to his lips and pretended to take a small sip, but he didn't actually drink any. He just watered it and put it back. "It's too hot," he said. "Let me wait a bit." Damien nodded. "Okay, honey. I'm going to take a shower. You get some rest." He stood up and went to the bedroom. Natalie heard the shower. He sprang into action immediately. He grabbed the cup, ran to the kitchen, and emptied it into the sink. Then he poured some water into it, stirred it, and made it look like he'd just drunk it. He could hear his heart beating, the ringing in his ears. She went to her bedroom. She looked in the closet. Her dresses, her shoes, her bags. Everything was in its place. But would it still be there tomorrow? Was Margaret right? She had to fake falling asleep. She lay down on the bed, closed her eyes and breathed evenly. Damien got out of the shower and lay down next to her. "Good night, darling," he said, and kissed her forehead. Natalie whispered. And he waited. He waited. He waited. An hour passed. 2 hours passed. Damien was fast asleep. He was already snoring. Natalie slowly got out of bed. She put on her shoes, grabbed her bag, and put the envelope in her pocket. She walked toward the door. Each step made the floor creak. But Damien didn't wake up. He opened the door. He went out. He ran down the stairs. He came into the lobby. The night watchman looked at him in surprise. "Mrs. Cole, where are you going at this hour?" "Just getting some air," Natalie said. She tried to smile. "I'll be right back," but he wouldn't return. She went out into the street. The night was still cold. The stars were shining. She saw a taxi and waved. The taxi stopped. "Where are you going, Mum?" the driver asked. Natalie paused for a moment. Where would she go? She had no home anymore. Her family was far away. Should she trust her friends? Then he remembered a place. "Please hurry," the taxi pulled away. Natalie sat in the back seat, looking out the window. The apartment windows were still dark. Damien was asleep. He hadn't yet realized he'd escaped. That he would notice in the morning. And what would happen then? Natalie didn't know. But she knew one thing. She had to trust Margaret. She had to go to that coffee house tomorrow morning. Gracie had to know her story. Because if Margaret was right, Natalie's life was in danger. And if Margaret was wrong, then Natalie would have destroyed her own marriage. In either case, there was no turning back. The motel was cheap and dirty. A small room, a narrow bed, a cracked mirror. But Natalie didn't care. She locked the door, sat on the bed and cried. She cried all night long. In the morning, his eyes were red and he had a headache. But he was determined. It was 8 o'clock. She got ready. She washed her face, combed her hair. She looked in the mirror. She didn't recognize herself. Who was this woman? Who was this woman who ran away from her husband? But he had no other choice. It was 9:30. He left the motel and walked down the street. The 4th Street coffee house was 5 blocks away. He walked. His steps were quick. His heart was pounding. He came to the coffee house. He went inside. It was a small, warm place. The smell of coffee. The smell of fresh bread. There were a few tables. In the corner by the window sat Margaret. Natalie walked toward her. Margaret looked up, her eyes bright. "You're here," she said. Her voice was filled with relief. "Thank goodness you're here," Natalie said, sitting across from him. "But I'm still skeptical. Tell me everything." "Start over." Margaret nodded. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were photographs. Photographs of a young woman. Brown hair, green eyes, beautiful. She looked happy. "This is my daughter Grace," Margaret said. Her voice trembled. 3 years ago, she was 26. She was a web designer. She worked for a small company. She inherited a small house from her mother. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Natalie looked at the photos. Grace was a beautiful girl. Her smile was genuine. One day Grace met a man, Margaret continued. His name was Daniel Carter, but his real name was something else. Damien Cole. He introduced himself as a real estate agent. He was charming, kind, romantic. Grace fell for him. Quickly, very quickly. Natalie felt sick to her stomach. This story was all too familiar. They got married 6 months later, Margaret said. A small wedding. I was there. They seemed happy. But then Daniel asked Grace to do something. He asked her to put the house in his name. Wives should share everything, he said. It's a sign of trust, she said. Natalie's hands began to shake. Grace agreed, Margaret said. Tears welled up in her eyes. She put the house in his name. One night, a month later, Daniel went on a picnic with her to the river. She called it a romantic night. But Grace never came back. Natalie held her breath. 2 days later, her body was found in the river. Margaret said. Her voice was very weak now. The police said it was drowning. They said it was an accident. But I knew. Daniel had done something to her. He sold the house, took the money, and disappeared. No one could find her. The case was closed. Grace went to heaven. And I was left alone. Natalie's eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said. "Me too," said Margaret. "But then, last month I saw you. With you, I recognized him. That face, those eyes. He had changed his name, but he was the same man. And you married him." Natalie shook her head. But how can I be sure? Maybe it was someone similar. Maybe. "Look here," Margaret said, pulling another photo from the file. It was the wedding photo of Daniel Carter and Grace. It was Damien. It was definitely him. The same face. The same smile. Natalie's world was rocked. "He's a predator," Margaret said. "He targets lonely, trusting women. He marries them, steals their assets, and then kills them. And now it's your turn." Natalie stood up. Her legs were shaking. "We need to go to the police. Now. If you want to go, go," said Margaret. "But there's no proof. Daniel is Damien now. Different identity. Different past. The police won't believe you. They'll say you're crazy. So what should I do?" Natalie shouted. Everyone in the coffee shop turned to her. Margaret stood up and grabbed Natalie's arm. "You need to hide. For now. I'll hire a detective. We'll investigate Damien. We'll find his real identity. We'll see if there are any other victims. And then we'll go to the police. With real evidence." Natalie nodded. She had no other choice. But at that moment, he looked out the coffee shop window and froze. Outside on the sidewalk stood Damien. She was looking at him. There was no love in his eyes anymore. There was only cold, calculated anger. And Natalie knew. The game was over. Damien knew. Natalie looked at Damien through the window, and everything slowed down. Seconds felt like hours. The look on Damien's face, that cold, calculated anger, froze her inside. She knew the game was up now. Margaret was right. Everything was real. As everything unraveled, it became clear that he wasn't who anyone thought he was. "We have to escape," Margaret whispered, holding Natalie's arm tightly. "Out the back door. Now." But Natalie couldn't move. Her legs were like concrete. Damien stood on the sidewalk, staring at her. Then he began to walk slowly toward the coffeehouse door. "Natalie." Margaret's voice was more urgent. "Now." Natalie came back to her senses. Margaret grabbed her and dragged her toward the back of the coffee shop. They passed the kitchen, where the staff stared at them in surprise. The back door was metal and heavy. Margaret pushed it, and they went out. The street was narrow and dirty. Dumpsters, empty boxes. The smell was overwhelming. But Natalie didn't care. They started running. Margaret was old, but she was fast. Fear gave her strength. Behind them, the back door of the coffee shop slammed open. Damien had emerged. "Natalie!" he shouted. His voice was no longer soft and loving. It was harsh and angry. "Stop. I need to talk to you. Don't stop." Margaret whispered. They ran toward the main street. There were people. There were cars. Crowds meant safety. Natalie looked back. Damien was following them. He was fast. He was young. He was catching up. "Taxi!" shouted Margaret, waving at a yellow car. The taxi stopped. They jumped in. "Drive." Margaret ordered the driver. "Now." "But, ma'am," I said, "crawl." The driver accelerated. The taxi sped away. Natalie looked out the rear window. Damien stood on the pavement, panting, his fists clenched, watching them. His eyes. Those eyes followed Natalie. And in that moment, Natalie realized something. This man wasn't going to give up. "Where are we going?" asked the driver. Margaret thought. The store. The main entrance. The mall. Crowded. A good place. The taxi dropped them off. They went inside. The people. The shops. The lights. The noise. It was easy to get lost in the chaos. Margaret led Natalie to a corner of a third-floor cafe. They sat down, gasping for air. Natalie's heart was still pounding wildly. Natalie asked, "Your phone," Margaret said. "It probably has a tracking app." Husbands do that sometimes. They're controlling types. Natalie pulled out her phone and looked at it. Among the apps, she saw something strange. An app called Love. She didn't recognize it. I didn't install this. That wolf, said Margaret. He's watching you. He always has. Natalie dropped the phone on the table as if it were poisoned. So what do we do now? Turn off the phone, Margaret said. Take out the SIM card. Turn it off completely. Then we'll call the detective from my phone. I've already found someone. Someone reliable. He'll investigate Damien. Natalie nodded. She hung up. She took out her SIM card. Now she was completely disconnected. Alone. Homeless. Her husband was trying to kill her. How could this be? Just last night, at the restaurant, everything was perfect. And now, where will you stay? Margaret asked. I don't know, Natalie said. I stayed at a motel last night, but I can't stay there for long. I'm short on money. Margaret reached into her bag and pulled out a card. This is my address. You can stay with me. I have a small place, but it's safe. No, Natalie said quickly. I can't put you in danger. If Damien finds me, he'll find me too, Margaret said. He already knows me. He remembers the restaurant. But it doesn't matter. I'm not afraid anymore. I have to do this for Grace. And for you. Natalie's eyes. Thank you, she said quietly. Margaret reached out and shook Natalie's hand. Everything will be okay, girl. I promise. But none of them truly believed it. Margaret's house was small but clean. A 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. It was a quiet neighborhood. Old people lived there. Children played in the park. It was a normal place. Natalie walked in and looked around. There were photographs on the walls. Pictures of Grace. As a baby, as a child, as a teenager. At every age. Every moment. Margaret hadn't forgotten her daughter. She never would. Sit down and relax, said Margaret. Let me make you something. Natalie sat on the couch. She was tired. So tired. It was as if she'd been living in a nightmare for the past 2 days. Margaret made tea and brought it to me. Drink it. It will relax you. Natalie looked at the cup, and then stopped. Should she drink the tea? Damien had given her tea last night, too. He had wanted her to drink it. Margaret noticed. I see, she said softly. You can't trust anyone anymore. I'll drink, and you'll drink. Then you'll see there's nothing in it. They both drank it together. The tea was nice. Warm, soothing. Natalie calmed down a little. I'll call the detective now, Margaret said, pulling out her own phone. She dialed a number. Hello, Mr. Thornton. I'm Margaret Lawson. Yes, that's for you. I found someone. The target woman. Yes, I'm with her now. Yes, can you come? Great. I'll give you the address. An hour later, the doorbell rang. Margaret answered. Standing in the doorway was a middle-aged man with short hair and a serious face. He was wearing a brown jacket and jeans. He was carrying a small bag. Mr. Thornton, said Margaret. Come in. The man walked in and looked at Natalie. You must be Natalie, he said. His voice was deep and confident. I'm Marcus, a private investigator. Thornton. Margaret told me everything. I want to help you. This was not just one incident. It was the accumulated story of years. Natalie stood up. Do you really believe me? Natalie stood up. Do you really believe me? Marcus said, because Margaret's story isn't unique. I've heard of other cases. Similar things. One man. Different names. Same game. He targets women, marries them, steals their property, then vanishes. The evidence is hard to come by. He's very clever, very observant. So what can we do? Natalie asked. Research, said Marcus. He opened his bag and took out a laptop. Damien, we need to dig into Cole's past. Who is the real him? Where did he come from? Do they have other identities? Are there other victims? Natalie thought. He told me he was a real estate agent. Pinnacle, he said he worked in realty. Marcus typed into the computer. Pinnacle Realty, he said. He opened the website. He looked at the list of employees. Damien Cole. He's not here. Natalie was surprised. What? But he said he worked there. He even showed me his business card. It has to be fake, Marcus said. These guys are professionals. They can fake anything. So what's his real job? Scam, Marcus said. Full-time. That's his job. Preying on women, cheating them, stealing their stuff. Natalie put her head in her hands. How could I have been so stupid? How could I not have seen him? You weren't stupid, said Margaret softly. He's a very good actor. He could fool any of us. Grace was a clever girl too. But he fooled her too. Marcus typed something else. I need Damien's photo now. I'll use facial recognition software. I'll see if he has any other ID. Natalie thought. My phone is off. But there are pictures of us on social media. The ones we took together. Marcus nodded. Give me your social media accounts. I'll take a look. Natalie gave the account names. Marcus found them, downloaded the photos, and loaded Damien's face into the software. The program started working. They waited. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Then a result appeared on the screen. Marcus said, Daniel Carter, Grace's husband. That there's something else. Another result. David Coleman. 2 years ago, in another city. Married to a different woman. Her name is Emily Shaw, and more clicks. Emily Shaw, 2 years ago. Traffic accident. Natalie gasped. Another accident. Yes, said Marcus. And there's more. Another result. Derek Chase. 4 years ago. Married to Karen Mitchell. Karen in a house fire. Margaret jumped to her feet. 4 people? 4. At least 4, Marcus said. Maybe more. We have to stop this guy, Natalie asked. Let's go to the police now, Marcus said. But first, we need to gather more evidence. Photos alone might not be enough. We need to prove his true identity. Fingerprints, DNA, something. So how do we find it? Natalie asked. Marcus thought. We need to go to your old house. Maybe we can find something there. A toothbrush, a strand of hair, a glass. For DNA. But he's there, Natalie said. He's looking for me. He's dangerous. That's why you won't come, Marcus said. I'll go. Secretly, at night. Natalie hesitated. But what if you get caught? I won't get caught, Marcus said. He smiled. It was reassuring. I'm a professional. Trust that. That night, Marcus left Margaret's house. Natalie and Margaret waited. Hours passed. Night fell deeply. 12 o'clock. 1 o'clock. Then the phone rang. Margaret answered. Hello, Marcus. She listened. Her face darkened. I understand. Okay. Be careful. She hung up. Natalie asked. Marcus went home, said Margaret. That Damien wasn't there. The house was empty. As if he'd moved out. Everything was gone. The furniture, the clothes, everything. Natalie's heart sank. Did he run away? It seems so, said Margaret. But Marcus found something. In the trash. A piece of paper. A note. It had an address on it. What address? Margaret glanced at Natalie. It's your old house. Your family's house. Your mother's. Natalie froze. That house. I haven't been there in years. It's rented. Tenants live there. Damien goes there, said Margaret. I don't know why, but he goes. The house. The house is in my name, Natalie said slowly. If he gets that house, it's worth a lot. It's downtown. It's expensive. Margaret nodded. He's still targeting you. He won't leave the job half done. He wants to complete his plan. But I didn't give him the house, Natalie said. How will he get it? You're married, Margaret said. Perhaps he found a legal way. Or another way. Forged documents. Forged signatures. He's an expert at it. Natalie stood up and began pacing the living room. I have to go. To that house. I have to stop him. No, said Margaret sternly. He might be waiting for you there. It might be a trap. Natalie shouted. Keep running? Hide forever? No. I have to stop this. Margaret walked over to her and grabbed her shoulders. Natalie, please. Think. He's dangerous, Natalie said. There was no fear in her eyes anymore. Only determination. But I will fight. I will not die like Grace. Like Emily, like Karen. I will survive. And I will bring him to justice. As the truth came out, a different kind of fear gripped everyone. Except Natalie. Tears welled up in Margaret's eyes. You're so brave, she said. No, Natalie said. I just don't have a choice. Marcus returned home and informed them. The police will want final evidence. If we catch Damien in that house and find evidence of a crime there, then they can arrest him. So how do we do it? Natalie asked. Marcus thought. We have to make a plan. You say you want to visit the house. Notify the tenants. Go tomorrow afternoon. Margaret and I will wait outside. If Damien shows up, we'll call the police immediately. And you just have to buy time. Talk to him. Stall him. Until we get here. But what do I say? Tell him you know everything, Marcus said. Grace, Emily, Karen. Tell him everything. Maybe he'll confess. Maybe he'll make mistakes. And we'll record it. Margaret nodded. I'll give you a little camera. It's hidden in your jacket. It'll record everything. Natalie took a deep breath. Okay, she said. Let's do it. The next afternoon, Natalie stood in front of her old house. It was a beautiful 2-story house with a stone facade. It had been inherited from her mother. She had many memories here. Happy memories. But now he was filled with fear. He knocked on the door. The tenant opened it. A young man. Yes? Hello, said Natalie. I'm the host. Natalie Harper. I gave you notice. I want to check the house. Oh yes, said the man. Come in. He opened the door and invited me in. Natalie walked in. Everything was in place. It was clean. A normal house. I'm upstairs, the tenant said. If there's any trouble, call me. He went up the stairs. Natalie was left alone. She went into the living room and looked around. The walls, the furniture, the windows. Familiar yet unfamiliar. Then he heard a noise. From the back door. Someone was entering. His heart sped up. He turned. And Damien was there. She stood in the doorway, looking at him. She was no longer smiling. Her face was cold and stony. Hello, Natalie, he said. His voice was low and threatening. I've been waiting for you. Natalie stepped back. Her heart nearly leaped out of her chest. Damien walked in slowly, closing the door behind him. He locked it. You tried to escape, he said. His voice was calm, but there was an underlying undercurrent of anger. You didn't listen to me. You trusted Margaret. It was a big mistake. Natalie tried to breathe. She had to stay calm. She had to buy time. The camera in her jacket was working. It was recording everything. She just had to get Damien to talk. You? Who are you? He asked. His voice was trembling, but he tried to remain firm. Damien raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? I am your husband, Damien, Natalie said. You're Daniel Carter, and David Coleman, and Derek Chase. How many more are there? How many names do you go by? Damien's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled. But the smile was cold, cruel. So Margaret told me everything. Wise old woman. Grace's mother. She never gave up. Grace, Natalie said. You, yeah. Damien admitted, shrugging, as if it were a normal thing. I threw it in the river. The police was stupid. They said it was an accident. Natalie felt sick to her stomach. How could she be so cool? How could she speak so easily? Emily Shaw, he said. Karen Mitchell. You should. Damien said. Emily looked like a car accident. Karen looked like a fire. I did each one differently. Variety is important. Don't let it draw attention to yourself. Natalie shouted. Why do you do this? For money? Do you steal people's lives just for money? Damien stepped closer to her. Natalie stepped back, leaning against the wall. There was nowhere left to run. Not for money, Damien said. His voice grew lower, more dangerous. For power. For control. These women, you're all the same. Lonely, vulnerable, trusting. You see me as your savior. But I am the predator. And you are my prey. You're a sick person, Natalie said. You're crazy. No, said Damien. I'm a realist. This world is for the strong. The weak are crushed. I'm strong. You're weak. It's that simple. But you said you loved me, Natalie said. Her eyes welled with tears. We got married. Everything felt real. Damien said, it was all a game. You believed it. You all believed it. It's so easy. A few sweet words, a few romantic gestures, and you open your hearts. And your wallets too. Natalie shook her head. No, this can't be. Maybe, Damien said. And it has been. For years. Grace, Emily, Karen, and others. Maybe 10, maybe 15. I've stopped counting. The police will catch you, Natalie said. Marcus is finding everything. The identities, the victims. You can't run away now. Damien laughed. It was a dry, cold laugh. Marcus Thornton? That retired detective. I know that. Margaret hired him. But there's no proof. Just photographs. Just suspicions. It won't hold any water in court. You're wrong, Natalie said. Everything is being recorded right now. Every word you say. This camera. She touched her jacket. Damien's smile faded. He lunged forward, grabbed Natalie's jacket and pulled. He found the small camera, pulled it out, and threw it to the floor. He crushed it with his foot. It's not recording anymore, he said. Natalie's hope faded, but then she remembered something. Marcus had said, the camera backs up. Everything goes to the cloud. It's instantaneous. If the camera breaks, the recording is still safe. You're late, Natalie said. Everything's already recorded. In the cloud. On Marcus. Already went to the police. Damien's face tightened. You're lying. I'm not telling, Natalie said. And just then, sirens rang out from outside. Distant but approaching. Damien ran to the window and looked out. There were blue lights at the end of the street. Police cars were coming. No, Damien said. His panicked voice was calm now. No, no, no. It's over, Natalie said. You can't run away now. Damien turned to him. There was no longer any composure in his eyes. Only wild, helpless anger. You ruined everything. He lunged at Natalie. His hands reached for her throat. Natalie screamed and dodged. Damien tried to catch her, but he was too fast. She ran into the living room and hid behind the sofa. Help, he shouted. Is there anyone up there? Help. The tenant ran down the stairs. What's going on? He saw Damien and stopped. Natalie shouted. It works. The tenant quickly pulled out his phone, but Damien ran at him, knocking the phone out of his hand. Don't interfere, he growled. The tenant backed away, frightened. He was a young man, not a fighter. Damien turned back to Natalie. One last time. If you withdraw the complaint, I'll let you go. I'll leave. You'll never see me again. But if you talk to the police, Natalie said. Her voice was no longer shaking. She was determined. I will tell you everything. For Grace, for Emily, for Karen, for all of them. Damien roared with rage, pushing the couch away and charging at her. Natalie fled, running into the kitchen. She fumbled for a knife, something to defend herself with. But Damien was too quick. He caught her, slamming her against the wall. You're going to die, he said, his hands reaching for his throat. And at that very moment, the front door slammed open. Marcus rushed in, followed by 2 police officers. Stop it, Marcus shouted. Hands up. Damien froze. He let go of Natalie and stepped back. The cops had their guns drawn. Hands up. Lie down. Now. Damien slowly raised his hands. There was no longer any anger on his face. Just a cold, blank expression. He had accepted defeat. He lay down on the ground. The police approached him and handcuffed him. Damien Cole, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Natalie was leaning against the wall, gasping for air. Marcus approached her. Are you okay? I'm fine, Natalie said. But she wasn't. She was shaking and crying, but she also felt relieved. It was over. It was finally over. Margaret came in, ran to Natalie, and hugged her. Thank goodness. Thank goodness you're alive. The cops took Damien outside. As he left, he glanced at Natalie once more. This isn't over, he whispered. I'll have lawyers. There's no evidence. I'm getting out, but Marcus smiled. There's evidence. Everything was recorded. Your confessions, your threats, everything. The judges will love this. Damien's face paled. He realized the truth. There was no escape. They put him in the car. Sirens blared. They drove away. Natalie sank to the ground, put her head between her knees and cried. From tension, from fear, from relief, from everything. Margaret sat beside her, stroking her hair. You're safe now, my daughter. It's all over. But Grace, Natalie said. Emily. Karen. They're not coming back. No, said Margaret softly. They won't come back. But now there will be justice. Damien will be punished, and other women will be protected. You made that happen. You were brave. Natalie looked up at Margaret. You were brave. You never gave up for Grace. You helped me. You believed in me. We did it together, Margaret said. The 2 of us. When the truth came out, even the silence breathed a sigh of relief. Marcus approached. The police want to take your statement. Are you ready? Natalie nodded. I'm ready. 3 months later, it was court day. Natalie, Margaret, and Marcus were sitting in the courtroom. Damien was in the defendant's chair. He was wearing a suit, but he no longer looked attractive. He looked tired, old, defeated. The prosecutor presented the evidence. Camera footage, confessions, DNA tests, the list of victims. Everything was clear. It was undeniable. Damien's lawyer tried to defend himself, but it didn't work. The jury wouldn't listen. When the verdict came, everyone stood. The jury foreman spoke. The defendant, Damien, we find Cole guilty of 4 counts of murder. There was an uproar in the hall. Crying, applause, the screams of journalists. The judge banged his gavel. Silence. He turned to Damien. Mr. Cole, I have 4 counts of first degree. I sentence you to life imprisonment. There is no parole. You will remain in prison for the rest of your life. Damien bowed his head. He said nothing. The police took him away. Natalie breathed a sigh of relief. It was over. It really was over. They went outside. The sun was shining. The sky was blue. The world was beautiful. Margaret hugged Natalie again. Thank you, she said. Grace is at peace now. We are all at peace, Natalie said. Marcus held out his hand and they shook. If you need anything, call me, he said. Thank you, Natalie said. We couldn't have done this without your help. You did it, Marcus said. It was your courage. 6 months later, Natalie was rebuilding her life. She moved back into her old house. She cleaned, painted, and bought new furniture. It was no longer a scary place. It was a home again. He returned to his work at the library. His colleagues welcomed him warmly. We missed you, they said. Is everything all right? Yeah, Natalie said. Everything is fine. Margaret and I met once a week. They drank coffee, talked, shared memories. It wasn't just Grace's memory anymore. They had survived. They had grown stronger. They had healed. One day, Natalie found a letter in her mailbox. It was from Damien. From prison. She wondered, should she open it? He opened it. It was a short letter. Natalie, I know I can't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. For everything I've done. I understand now that I'm sick. I'm getting treatment. I'll never be able to go out, but at least I'm facing myself. I hope you're happy. You deserve it. D. Natalie read the letter, then tore it up. She threw it in the trash. Damien was in the past. He had to look to the future. And the future was bright. A year later, Natalie organized a small event for the home library campaign. The local community came. Books, tea, and cake. Margaret was there too. It's a wonderful event, she said. Grace would love it, Natalie said. I'm doing it in her memory. For Grace, for Emily, for Karen. For all of them. Sometimes life delivers justice in the most painful way. By evening, everyone had left. Natalie was left alone, sitting in the living room, sipping a cup of tea. She thought about her life. The past year. Fear, panic, the threat of death. But she had survived. She had become stronger. The doorbell rang. She opened it. A young woman was standing in the doorway. Hello, she said. You're Natalie, are you Harper? Yes, Natalie said. How can I help you? I'm a journalist. The woman said. Sarah Bennett. We heard your story. Damien the Cole case. We want to do an interview. To warn other women. Against scammers like this. Natalie thought about it. Then she nodded. Okay, I can talk. But only on one condition. Why? Let's not forget them, Natalie said. Grace, Emily, Karen. Their names must be remembered. Their stories must be told. Of course, Sarah said. Absolutely. Natalie smiled. Then let's get started. The interview was published in a national newspaper. Under the title, How I Survived a Monster. Natalie, her story. Margaret's struggle, the memory of the victims. It was all there. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of women wrote. Thank you, they said. You warned me. I'll be more careful now. Some shared similar stories. They too had encountered scammers but managed to escape. Some were less fortunate. Natalie started a support group. They called it the Survivors Group. They met weekly, talking and supporting each other. Margaret was a member. Marcus was a counselor. Time passed. Years passed. Natalie recovered. Not completely. Some nights she still had nightmares. She saw Damien's face, felt his hands on her throat. But she would wake up and remember the truth. She was safe. She was alive. She was free. And Damien was in prison. Forever. 5 years later, Natalie spoke at a conference on trust and safety, red flags in relationships. Hundreds of people listened. My story, it's extraordinary, Natalie said, that the lessons it teaches apply to everyone. Not to trust people too easily. Not to ignore red flags. Trust your gut. If something's wrong, it probably is. People applauded. They asked questions. Natalie answered. She shared her experience. She gave hope. After the conference, a young woman approached her. Miss Harper, you were so inspiring. I was in a bad relationship too, but I escaped. Your story gave me courage. Natalie smiled. I'm so glad. You're strong. Remember that. Thank you, the woman said, her eyes teary but happy. Natalie watched her, and she knew this was her mission. To help others, to protect other women, to keep the memory of Grace, Emily, Karen alive. And he would do this for the rest of his life. 10 years later, Natalie moved to a small town. It was quieter, more peaceful. She opened a bookstore. She named it Grace's Books, for her daughter Margaret. Margaret was old now, in her 80s. But she was still strong. She still remembered. She still fought. One day, Margaret came to visit. It's a beautiful place, she said. Grace would love it. I know, Natalie said. I did it for him. Margaret took Natalie's hand. You're my daughter now, she said. Grace is gone, but you're here. And I'm so proud, Natalie cried. Tears of joy. I love you too. The two of them sat together, drinking tea and talking. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink. It was a beautiful evening, and Natalie knew her life wasn't perfect, but it was good. She was safe. She was loved. And that was enough. Dear listeners, Natalie's story ends there. But the lessons he taught remain forever. Trust is important, but blind trust is dangerous. Always watch for red flags. What seems too good is often not true. If you're in this situation, please reach out for help. Don't stay silent. Speak up. Someone will believe you. Someone will help. And remember, survival is not a matter of courage, it's a choice. Choose to live every day. Choose to be strong every day. Even though time passed, what happened that day would not be forgotten. In the end, everyone learned that the truth always has a way. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do? If you were Natalie, would you make the same decisions? See you in the next story. And please, stay safe.